So back in February, Rebecca Ferguson did an interview where she referred to one of her former co-stars screaming at her on set, just verbally abusing her, and she refused to name who it was. So in reaction to that, tons of people started searching. A bunch of people on the internet started doing a witch hunt, trying to figure out which former co-star of hers was the one who was mean to her. And it caused a lot of chaos, but let's just watch the original clip before we get into that.
Well, this is not this is the response clip where she talks about...
No, this is from the original comment about her co-star.
Okay. All right, here we go.
Yeah.
You've been proudest of using your own voice.
I did a film with an absolute idiot of a co-star. And this human being was being so insecure and angry because this person couldn't get the scenes out. And I think I was so vulnerable and comfortable that I got screamed at. And I would cry walking off set. This person would literally look at me in front of the whole crew and say, "You call yourself an actor, this is what I have to work with. What is this?" And I stood there just breaking. This happens. But because this person was number one on a call sheet, there was no safety net for me. So no one had my back. And I remember the next day I walked on and I said, "You get off my set." This is the first time I've ever spoken. I remember being so scared. And I looked at this person and I said, "You can F off. I'm going to work towards a tennis ball. I never want to see you again." And then I remember the producers came up and said, "You can't do this to number one. We have to let this person be on set." And I said, "But the person can turn around and I can act to the back head."
Wow.
And I did. I was so scared. I feel it now when I'm saying it. But from that moment, I have never let myself get to a point when I've got home and gone, why did that happen?
The better response would be to yell back.
What a girl boss. Well, she's saying that that's what she did.
No,
but it took her a while to do it.
No, that's not what she's saying. She's saying that she actively changed the acting process by being petty and not actually talking through what happened with this person and going back and forth and yelling when it happened, right? So making it about changing the entire process of shooting the scenes is not the same thing as standing up for yourself in the moment. But that's not the problem here anyways. The problem here is that when you don't name the name of the person who did it, she's an actress, which means she's an independent contractor, which means she has worked on dozens of films and television shows. So everybody she's ever acted with is now suspect. The only two she ruled out were Hugh Grant and Tom Cruise.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is this seems to be a long-standing trend with women in Hollywood where they are really keen to make allegations or tell salacious stories and then never name who it was that allegedly was rude to them, yelled at them, or even physically assaulted them. And then they just let the internet do the digging and, you know, send hate to whoever they reasonably suspect it to be. But then in the process, tons of people are getting implicated who don't deserve that. And they're just like, tough luck.
This is her quote right here. She says, "I got phone calls from amazing co-stars who I've worked with going, 'You understand what you've done, right?' And I was like, oh my God, no, I didn't think. I mean, it's not my responsibility, to be honest. I don't really care. You're great, but my story's my story. If you're a good person, then don't worry about it." That's not how this works. I would actually argue that what she is doing here is more callously dismissive of another person's feelings than somebody having the absolute gall to just yell at you while you're doing a movie.
Mm-hmm. I mean, contrast that with the lady who said Johnny Depp yelled at her on a set when she was a background actor. I understand why you don't want to say who it was, especially if it's someone who's more famous than you. You're probably going to be the one who ends up getting more hate, right?
I can't imagine being that callous of a bunch of people's feelings and saying, tough, deal with it, but I'm a victim.
Because I'm the victim.
Because I got yelled at.
Because that's the supremacy of the victim. Like, the victim is always right. It doesn't matter what happens. The consequences of the victim's actions, they are always excused. It has nothing to do with them. So she also said, is this bizarre? She said she wasn't expecting people to try to find out who it was. What do you mean you weren't expecting the internet to get curious as to
not online.
who was yelling at you? And she said that, yeah, her co-stars began contacting her, panicked about what was going on or if they were referring to her. She said, I realized at the age I am now, it doesn't matter when you sit and do interviews, because I definitely think that I'm much more open. I know where my boundaries are, but the point of the interview wasn't about finding the person. Of course, people will be interested, but the story wasn't about naming the individual, but it was about highlighting her strength.
That's pure narcissism.
She says the point was, is there a point in your career where you were treated in a way that you changed your decision on either you want to change or you will not accept it, etc.? She has no idea what she's saying. So basically, she was telling a story of herself being victimized in order to lionize herself, because that's what people do nowadays.
But while doing that, you put a lot of problems on a bunch of people who didn't ask for any of this.
She's just so smug.
And then dismissed their struggle because it doesn't play into what happened to you, which I would argue is just unbelievably narcissistic.
By the way, people were commenting saying that it might be The Rock, and he actually had to make a statement in support of her in order to exonerate himself, because he's like the most PR friendly person ever.
I would argue
he said,
that,
hate seeing this, but love seeing her stand up to bullshit. Rebecca was my guardian angel sent from heaven on our set. I love that woman, and I'd like to find out who did this. He's literally white knighting for her so hard.
No, give him a knuckle sandwich.
He wouldn't want to mess with me, or he wouldn't say that to you while I'm around, queen.
I would argue that it's just as plausible that this could be a woman, the way she worked to avoid pronouns.
Actually, yeah, she did. Or they're non-binary.
Yeah, maybe that's
they
what
might
it
be
is.
Non-binary.
It's hilarious, and I
don't
see
assume.
this. There's this. It's weird, right? So there is this real desire to tell these stories, and it's so easy for them to just tell these stories. But if you want to tell the story in a way that's actually fair, you have to name the people you're talking about. But they don't want to do that because that invites backlash from the industry. Mm-hmm. If you name the person it happened to, then you're labeled difficult to work with and you're never going to get another job. But you also want the superficial brownie points of being a victim because somebody yelled at you at work. I saw somebody in the chat mention it's the directors who yell. It's like, okay, so if it's an actor who yelled, all the more reason for you to yell back. And if you get fired, you stood up for yourself, then you can go on your interview and say, I stood up for myself. I yelled at this person who had the guts, who had the absolute disrespect to yell at me, and I lost my job over it. You're an even bigger victim now. You just don't have the payoff.
Well, the way that she retold the story made it sound like, I got yelled at and humiliated on set by my co-star. I went home, I was taking a shower, and I started having my shower thoughts about, I would have said this, and I would have been like...
Everybody wins the argument when they're in the shower.
And then she went back into work the next day, and she was like, hey, get off my set. And she's like, her voice is shaking. She's like, F you, like, you get off of my set. And it just sounds utterly pathetic, but no one listened to her.
would the better of response have been, now of course I apologize, but this is a little bit of Monday morning quarterbacking here, wouldn't be to show up the next day and say, I'll only act with your back turned to me. It would be to go to this person like an adult and say, you spoke to me disrespectfully yesterday, you raised my voice and it wasn't fair. Let's talk about it and come to some type of an understanding.
She's saying that she went back to them and told them off.
Yeah.
Basically. She didn't try to talk to them about it or resolve it in any way. Depending on the person, that might be futile. But still, it doesn't exactly make her look like the mature party.
It's fair to point out that she is a great actress, so it's not going to hurt her ability to get work. Obviously, the Dune series has done well. She was in the Mission Impossible franchise for multiple movies. She's going to be fine as an actress.
Back when this happened, she might not have been as famous.
I just felt, well, if she's famous enough to say, this is my set.
Well,
get off my set. Do you say that if you're third on the call sheet? I don't think so.
She definitely wasn't first.
Yeah. There's a $20 one there from Aaron P.
Mary, what are you going to do about this blonde girl who interrupts Brett and is trying to replace your merry ghostliness?
Am I the blonde in this? I'm the blonde in this.
I don't know. I don't get the super chat.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
I just think that it's to make a comment, to make a whole story about how you were callously spoken to, and then callously disregard the feelings of others that your story impacted, shows a frightening lack of understanding of the human condition. Or
it just shows narcissism.
Or disregard to the human condition.
It's just narcissism at the end of the day. It's garden variety narcissism.
And it is funny because it wasn't just this story. There was also the Carla Gugino story, who is also a fantastic actress.
Yes.
But
during a recent interview, she said she had a little PTSD from being ignored by male directors on sets because she's a woman. She said, I had an instance recently where I needed to assert something important to me, and I hesitated because I wondered if it would be perceived as demanding. She literally sounds like America Ferrera in Barbie.
This is the quintessential problem for women in Hollywood who are just going to be more conflict averse than men.
The difference at this age is that I will just push myself to do it. Ultimately, it was received positively. I still have a little PTSD from a career full of instances where you're acting with a male actor and you say to the director, hey, what about we try such and such? And the male director goes, I don't think so. And then 2 minutes later, your fellow actor, who's an advocate for you, says the exact same thing. And the director's like, great idea.
I think what that is, I
It's
think that's
actual
like a weird,
insanity.
I think that's a self-own. I think the guy was just better at describing what it is that you wanted to do.
Yeah, she said that she had her perspective changed following a conversation with Monica Bellucci, who said, just effing ask for what you want. They're going to call you a bitch regardless because you're a woman. I thought that was also
If
true.
you're a guy, you're going to be called misogynistic and difficult to deal with.
They're still residing in the boys' club and always will be. Amazing. That is just simply not true. I mean, I know that I haven't seen firsthand the instances they're talking about, but Hollywood in 2024, can you really say that it's a boys' club?
Also, here's the thing. A lot of female directors like Olivia Wilde are talking about working on consensus and pay equity.
It's so collaborative.
And here's the thing. What's going to happen, at least in my opinion, you may have a more collaborative work environment. I believe that what's going to happen is your feelings will be hurt less. Your movies will make less money because you need a tyrant director to come in and be the bad guy to bring the vision to life. And that sucks, but a lot of people say art is pain anyways. So what do you want? Do you want to be comfortable, or do you want to get the best possible interpretation of your art out to the world and make a ton of money doing it? You can't have both.
A male director is not going to want a collaborative work environment.
No, he's going to want to bring his vision to life at all costs, and he's not going to care what your feelings are.
Male directors just might be better at directing movies. Am I allowed to say that? Okay. It's out there now.
There's another 20 from Aaron.
Okay.
The blonde girl yesterday who was taking Mary's place, she interrupted Brett a lot. Brett her were talking about Gen Z dating. Oh, I think they're talking about when Hannah Claire was here.
Oh.
That was
Okay.
No, Hannah Claire, look,
You're talking about Gen Z doesn't date IRL anymore.
Yeah, and we're not just talking about that. We were talking about so one article said Gen Z is only going on first dates online, and the other one says a whole new wave of Gen Z people are meeting their spouses at work. And it's a new trend.
Never
again.
makes sense.
No, there's always because any network or anybody can find an expert to say we did a study of this small amount of people and it indicates this.
Right. You can make it say whatever you want it to say.
And it's like
basically.
the one that's about like Gen Z is doing their first date online is probably funded by an app, like a dating app.
I think that the point of it is like Gen Z isn't going on first dates, period.
I don't know. I mean, those birth rates are falling. We need to get those birth rates up. Those are rookie numbers. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.